By looking at this question related to weight indexation on Phillips curve, we were given this Phillips curve equation, and we were told expected inflation is equal to last year's inflation. So we have de-anchored inflation expectations, and then we were told that in year T, the central bank decides to keep the unemployment rate at 4% below 2.5%. In part A, which we have already done in part one, we looked at how we can find inflation rate for the years if you go back. We've already done this in part one on how we can find inflation rate for year T plus 1, T plus 2, T plus 3, and so on. Right. So now what we want to do is we want to look at how the Phillips curve equation changes once we have wage indexation. Now suppose that, so they're saying suppose that half the workers have indexed labor contracts based on the current inflation rate. Right. So now we want to find the new equation of the Phillips curve. Right? So for this, let's just recall something. Let's just go back and let's just go back and recall something. Let me just move this a bit here. Yeah, now let's just recall some things here. So now we know, okay, how in the text do we derive Phillips curve? We derive it from a WSPS model. We derived a Phillips curve from our WSPS model, right? So we're doing B part 1. We derived a Phillips curve from WSPS model, where we assume W depends upon P, right? When we derive PS from WSPS model without the assumption that P is equal to P, right? When we're deriving the Phillips curve, we do not assume P is equal to P, right? So we derived Phillips curve from WSPS model, where we assumed W depends on PE, right? In the WS equation, right? W depends on PE. WS equation, which is W is equal to PAFUZ, right? So when we derive the Phillips curve from the WS model, a WSPS model, this is the WS equation that we use. Now consider, so their wages were set based on expected price level POP, right? Now consider, if lambda is fraction of labor contracts indexed to current rate of inflation, right? Indexed to current rate of inflation. And 1 minus lambda are updated based on expected inflation. Right, when we derived the Phillips curve, we were assuming wages are set based on expected price level and hence expected inflation. But now we're seeing only lambda is a fraction of contracts that are now indexed to current rate of inflation, or only 1 minus lambda based on expected inflation. Originally, when we derived the Phillips curve, we were assuming that all were based on expected inflation. Right? WS equation had expected price level and hence expected inflation was right. But now we're assuming that there's a certain fraction that are indexed to current rate of inflation, the remaining are indexed to are updated based on expected inflation. Then PC equation is given as so we have pi t, right? So if we go back, this was the original equation of our PC, right? So over here, if I go back and if I write this, so this is pi t is equal to pi et plus 0.1 minus 2 et. Here you just have pi et, right? Because when we derive the Phillips curve from the WSPS model, like we said, in the WS equation, we had PE, and hence what was relevant was expected prices and hence expected inflation in determining, the wage contracts. But now we're seeing that, there's a certain fraction that is basically indexed to current rate of inflation, and the remaining are only updated based on current expected inflation, right? So now when I write my Phillips curve equation, instead of pi et, we have lambda pi t plus 1 minus lambda pi et, right? And then the remaining is the same, right? So now basically here, so now these are indexed, right? And these are not indexed, right? We have this now. So we have this now, instead of pi et. Initially, in our Phillips curve equation, we only had expected inflation here, right? Because we were deriving the Phillips curve from the WSPS model, where the assumption was the wages are set based on expected price level, and hence expected inflation is right. But now we're seeing that instead of pi et, we have lambda pi t plus 1 minus lambda pi t, because we're assuming a fraction lambda are indexed to current rate of inflation, and the remaining are still indexed to expected inflation, right? So note over here, note, if lambda is equal to 0, all wages are set based on pi et, all wages are set based upon expected inflation, right? And equation reduces to original form. Equation of PC reduces to original, right? Right, so if I have lambda is equal to 0 here, then we'll still, so the PC equation is given as the remaining part is the same, plus 0.1 minus 2. Right, so over here, if lambda is equal to 0, then we'll get the exact same equation as this, right? Because then all wages are set based on expected, all wages are set based on expected inflation, expected price and expected inflation rate. Now, in this case, we're told lambda is equal to 0.5. In this case, so the degree of indexation lambda is 0.5. Right? So half workers have wages indexed to current ratio of inflation, and the remaining half still have based on expected inflation. So we also know, this is also given in the question, we also know pi et is equal to pi t minus 1, right? So we also know expected inflation is equal to last year's inflation. This is also given to us in question. So our PC equation becomes, so PC equation given as pi t is equal to, we know instead of lambda we have 0.5, so it's 0.5 pi t plus 1 minus 0.5 is also 0.5 pi t minus 1 plus 0.1 minus 2 ut. So if we simplify this, this just becomes pi t. So this just becomes pi t is equal to pi t minus 1. So if you just simplify this, this just becomes pi t minus 1 plus 0.2 minus 4 ut, right? So let's just see, okay, how do we go there here in detail? Okay, let's just do it in detail. Sorry. So if we do this step by step, so we can take this here, this becomes 0.5 pi t, the 0.5 pi t minus 1 plus 0.1 minus 2 ut. And then we divide both sides by 0.5. So this becomes pi t minus 1. And then, you know, when you're dividing both sides by 0.5, this just simply becomes plus 0.2 minus 4 ut. So this is the new PC equation under wage indexation. The key thing to remember is when we derive our PC equation, like the PC equation that we derive, so the PC equation that we derived, which in general is like pi t is equal to pi et plus, if we just write down the form, then we'll be. So the equation that we in general derive, which is pi t is equal to pi et, this is the general formula, plus m plus z minus alpha ut, right? This equation that we derive, sorry, so this is the general equation that we derive, right? Of our PC, right? So this is the general equation that we derive of PC, and here we have a pi et. This is the general equation of our PC that we derive, where we have pi et, right? This is because we derived it from the WSPS model, where W depends upon PE, right? And hence what's relevant for wages is expected inflation. Now what we're saying is, over here, what if only, so here, you just keep in mind, when you derive the PC equation, you have expected inflation here, because in the WS equation, you know, we are assuming the wages are set based on expected price level, and hence, you know, expected inflation becomes relevant. But now we're saying that instead of all wages being set based on expected prices and hence expected inflation, lambda is the fractional labor contracts index to current rate of inflation and 1 minus lambda based on expected inflation. So what happens over here is pi et gets replaced by lambda pi t plus 1 minus lambda pi et when you have wage indexation. If this lambda was 0, then all will be set based on expected, then all wages will be set based on expected inflation, right? But when you allow for a degree of lambda is essentially degree of indexation. So when you allow for indexation, then in your original Phillips curve equation, what you do is you replace pi t with lambda pi t plus 1 minus lambda pi t, because originally we assumed when we derived it from the WSPS model, the wages are set based on expected price level. But now we're allowing for the fact that some fraction is indexed to current rate of inflation and the remaining are updated based on expected inflation.